What scientists really discovered at the depths of the Mariana Trench. A couple years prior to filmmaker James Cameron's 2012 solo dive into the Mariana Trench, a group of scientists would report a mysterious encounter they had while exploring her depths. Before the dive, they had picked up a massive anomaly on their radar. And even though they assumed it was a large gas cloud recently released from the bottom of the ocean, the lead oceanographer and his assistant were excited to take the dive. It was also noted that they were the only ones brave enough to. As they approached the large rounded anomaly, they begin hearing something. And they notice that as they're hearing the sound, they can feel the pressure of the water changing around them. "You sure you want to continue?" asked the oceanographer. "How could we not?" said his assistant, and they continue. They get within 100 feet of the anomaly, and they notice something metallic and shiny in the water. "What is that?" they say. That's when whatever it is lets out a loud screech like nothing they have ever heard before. You can literally feel the vibrations of the high-pitched screaming. Then suddenly, as soon as it started, it stops, and the anomaly has disappeared. The oceanographer looks over at his colleague, and her eyes are wide. "What's wrong?" he asks. The sound we were hearing and the pressure change that we were feeling before the screams was breathing. So one of my followers who lives in Cali has a grandfather in Mexico. His grandfather lives next to the 7 luminaries of Mexico. These 7 craters are known for UFO activity. So when my guy went to stay with his grandfather for 9 months, he got to learn a lot about his heritage. And I'm gonna tell you, stick around, cause this shit you don't hear every day. His grandfather said his ancestors had contact with the sky people. They would share secrets with his ancestors, making their lives on Earth easier. Here's some of the accounts from his father and his grandfather. He said they used to have gifts from the Earth in the dirt, water, and rocks. That they would rub a special dirt on them before hunts because it would completely camo them, almost invisible. That there was sand that you could roll through and you'd be fire resistant for 40 minutes to an hour. That ETs even showed his people a gooey type water. This water you could shape, and you could shape it to fit your head. It would allow you to stay underwater for 2 hours. Rocks that when crushed and rubbed on the bottom of your feet, would allow you to walk on water. A follower of mine's grandfather lived next to the 7 luminaries in Mexico. When he would go visit from Cali, he'd tell him about his ancestors. Some of the stories are crazy. I've been lucky enough he's actually been sharing them with me and telling me that I can share them with you. So I have been, and this is stuff you definitely want to hear. His grandfather stated that there's been 3 great wars on Earth. Wars of good against evil. He would state that the evil beings wanted to take Earth, and that during these times the world was highly technologically advanced, and many of the people were of a higher consciousness, including his ancestors, which I have reason to believe may have been the original Egyptians. Many years before the third war of good versus evil, they knew it was coming. So the good higher beings of love and light, which his people would refer to as the sky people, tasked his ancestors with traveling the globe and warning other human factions. So they would travel to China, Australia, Russia, Europe, all over the globe. So as they got to each location, they would warn the people of the impending battle. They would build relationships with them and teach them of love and light and how to harness the Earth's energy. They did this by building pyramids. Using sacred geometry taught to them by the sky people, they were able to build them mimicking the star constellations. They did this so at certain times throughout the year, when they lined up with their star constellation, they would harness that said star's energy. Not only that, they taught them how to harness the Earth's energy in themselves, their being. This made the people of the world in these times very powerful. They built such strong relationships at the locations that they went to, sometimes they would end up living there, or the people would end up coming back with them. This is why I believe they could have been the ancient Egyptians. They were a seafaring group that traveled the globe building pyramids. Makes sense. And what a lot of people don't know is the pyramids are actually earthquake-proof. And if a nuclear blast occurs nearby, they'll sustain. Shortly after, around 10,000 BC, the battle would take place with the evil alien faction. They would hide the women and children in deep underground caverns that had seawater in them. Here, they would be protected by the allied sea creatures, which I believe could have been mermaids. While their warriors, known as Mexicanos, would join the good alien beings and fight this grave enemy. They would use super advanced technological weapons that could literally incinerate their enemy to a pile of ashes. They had super speed and agility. They were faster than anyone on the battlefield. They could also move things with their mind. They would pick up large boulders and toss them, smashing the evil beings. He would also say that at this time, man could talk to animals, and they were part of the battle too. Even Bigfoot, he would claim that Bigfoot and man once had a long-standing relationship, that Bigfoot has been around for millennia, and that they are here to protect the portals to inner Earth. So the battle would rage for 1,000 years, eventually good prevailing. But right after, the Ice Age would take place, due to nuclear fallout. The legend of Antarctica's Mystery Mountain. It was the early 1900s when a team of expeditioners flew to Antarctica to test new drilling equipment. There was a professor on board with previous experience, a couple scientists, and drill experts. Their goal was to test this new technology. They were going to drill and take samples. As they flew into their destination, one of the expeditionists noticed something. Guys, look. They all look over and they see a large cavern in the mountain. He takes note of it and they continue to camp. They drill for a couple days and notice odd triangle shapes showing up in their core samples. They looked like imprints, but they weren't sure. They just wrote it off as an anomaly within the ice. So after a couple days of drilling, the scientist that spotted the large cavern in the mountain decided he wanted to take a couple team members to investigate. Much to the professor's discontent, they take off. But as they're flying in, the plane crashes. Everybody survives and they make camp. That night, they go to investigate the structure and find something odd. There were 8 creatures frozen in the ice with triangle-shaped feet and bones scattered about too. Legend of Antarctica's Mystery Mountain 2. The creatures were large, 8 to 9 feet tall, and very odd-looking. They had large tentacles and triangle-shaped feet. The entire time, they're telling the professor over the radio back at camp their findings. He's amazed. The men go on to tell him that 2 or 3 of the frozen ice capsules were broken, and the creatures inside as well. They figure the bones and animal fragments were due to them eating them, probably before the Ice Age. They continue to describe the beast as having a star-shaped head and teeth throughout it. Man, these are probably some vicious creatures. This is crazy, one of them said. And just as he does, he hears a ringing in his ear. What is that? Do you guys hear that? Yes, I do, the other 2 said. What is that? Professor, what is this ringing we hear? What is going on? I don't know, guys, but I get the hell out of there. Then one of them yells, "Oh my God, run!" Guys, what is going on? Answer me. The mic cuts off. 3. Retired Navy SEAL stationed in Antarctica turns whistleblower, exposing the long-hidden truth that an alien civilization lives deep below the frozen tundra. The soldier requests that his identity remain hidden for the purposes of this interview. I'm going to refer to this retired soldier as Patriot 1, and he was stationed on the east side of Antarctica in the early 2000s. It was August 1st, 2003, when Patriot 1's life would change forever. Early that morning, he and his colleague were dispatched to a particular location. They were told they needed to locate an anomaly using satellite imagery. On paper, it was a recon mission, but unofficially, they were supposed to meet a certain individual and then report back to camp. As they approached their destination, they noticed massive walls protruding from the ice. They soon discovered a large door almost 30 feet tall. Patriot 1 approached the door and laid his hand on it, and much to his astonishment, the door shifted back and then into the wall. As he entered, he recalls how beautiful the bright green lights were, but they could never find the source of them. The mystery of the Alaska Triangle and the legend of the Qualopalik. Since 1988, over 16,000 people have gone missing in the Alaska Triangle. The rate per 1,000 is more than double the national average. So why are all these people going missing? According to Inuit legend, it's the creatures that inhabit it, like the Qualopalik. Though most people believe it was Inuit legend to keep kids away from the frigid waters, a recent account where 2 buddies went fishing says different. These guys happened to be fishing off the coast of Barrow when one of them set their hook on something big. The other guy watched as he continued to fight whatever he caught, when suddenly he saw a green web-like hand with claws grab the side of the boat. But just as quick as he saw it, it disappeared back into the water. No sooner did he turn to say something when his friend got pulled into the water. He watched his friend disappear into the depths with a large mermaid-like creature. They never found his body. After finding these structures within the mountains, the first one they explored was the Buseji Mountains in Romania. And what they found there, absolutely mind-blowing. Super advanced tech, large tunnels, essentially made by giants, and basically what they call the Great Gallery, which is a library that discloses and displays in holographic image the complete history of Earth and mankind. Also, virtually every living being that has inhabited this planet up to this point. A witness that was there to watch this display said that he could not disclose the origins of mankind because it was too intense for the mind state that humanity is currently at. They eventually dated this gallery to up to 55,000 years ago. And it was a super advanced society that created it. And in the middle of this projection room or gallery, there were 3 massive doors that led to tunnels. One said Tibet, one said Egypt, the other said Inner Earth. Well, long story short, they put together, they being U.S. and Romanian government. This was actually before we even associated with Romania. After this, they quickly joined NATO, and of course, then relations with Romania took a turn for the better, obviously. We started actually associating with them for this reason. So they put together a 16-man team that was to explore each tunnel. Well, they explored them all to the Giza Sphinx, Tibet, then Inner Earth. And they did say that the Inner Earth expedition was a success and diplomatic relations were met. Now, let's get back to what I wanted to talk about with the whole Jesus thing. Very intriguing, very interesting. Obviously, like I said, this is entertainment purpose only, so it may or may not be true, but it's a cool story nevertheless. So, check it out. So they finally make it to the Giza Sphinx in a tunnel that's only 30,000 years old. So the tunnels in Romania are actually older than the ones in the Giza Pyramid or Giza Plateau. They find a projection room and something below it.
Avatar clearly shows you how the fuck they came and landed on our planet and took over our shit. How they cut down our biggest tree. We really had a tree that was like, we had like all the mountaintops was trees, but we had a tree that was super huge, like that was like the tree of life, if you want to call it that. We really had that tree. They cut it down, and now where that tree was at, it still glows in that location. They now call it the Aurora Borealis. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'll pull it up right now real quick, family. You know, peace to the guys and goddesses tuned in. So, you know, it's a lot of things on our planet, family, that has been hidden from us, and they lied to us, and you know, called them these motherfucking mysteries of the world and shit. You feel me? Ain't no mysteries, nigga. You feel me? Ain't no mysteries, motherfucker lying. That's what it is. You know, when you lying, it's gonna be a lot of mysteries. This is the Aurora Borealis. This is the actual location, family. Okay? This is the actual location in the center of our realm. This is located in the center of our realm. They don't tell you this though, all right? But this is located in the center of our realm. And where this location is at, that was our biggest tree that we was connected to, which held all our frequencies and our memories and our...
This mural depicting a giant carrying 2 elephants was found in one of the pyramids of Nubia, sometimes referred to as the pyramids of Meroe. Meroe is the historical capital of the Kingdom of Kush. This is where the antique mural of the giant was found, in the burial chambers in one of these pyramids. This set of 50 sandstone and red brick pyramids are marvels of ancient architecture, the remnants of an ancient civilization dating back to 2500 BC, a civilization that once thrived in the backyard of modern-day Sudan. The adornments and cuneiform writing all throughout these structures show of a people that had a historical global reach. But this old fresco depicting a giant of colossal dimensions carrying 2 elephants has specialists buzzing. Theorists claim that this is without a doubt proof that red and white giants once roamed this earth. Could he be the last of an ancient Atlantean civilization that averaged 15 feet tall? What do you think? Comment below. This is the legend of the Giants' War of the Solomon Islands, Part 1. It's said that giants have inhabited the Solomon Islands for thousands of years, dating back as far as possibly the fallen from the Book of Enoch. Many of the local indigenous believe that these giants even survived the Great Flood, and they inhabit the subterranean pockets, possibly to this day. For example, a well-known story takes place in 1998, when Ross Mining Company was able to allegedly bribe government employees to allow them to attempt to mine gold on the islands. According to witnesses, a mine was set to be dug at a location known as Gold Ridge on one of the islands. So the company immediately began moving in heavy equipment, namely bulldozers, because they had to prepare to move massive amounts of dirt in search for the gold. It's said shortly after they began excavations, a blade pin on one of the dozers broke, putting it out of commission. So rather than having to deal with taking the 10-ton blade back to the shop, They just dropped it in its place and took the dozer back instead. But what Ross Mining Company apparently didn't know was that the zone that they were mining actually butted up to lands inhabited by the giants. So after having fixed the pin on the bulldozer, they brought it back to the job site the next day. But much to their astonishment, the 10-ton blade was gone and they had no idea where it went. They were absolutely baffled, considering that the thing weighed 10 tons. What could have possibly moved it? So the crew began looking. They began combing the area to see if they could possibly find this massive blade. When one of the workers was combing the edge of the thick jungle, and he yells out, "Hey guys, I found it!" What they weren't ready for was what they found next to the blade. A massive footprint, claimed to be up to 3 feet in length. While the workers never fully came to a conclusion, the indigenous people or the locals knew exactly what it was. They claimed that this giant with a massive footprint up to 3 feet in length, making it close to 18 feet tall, tossed the blade over 100 feet into the foliage. This account is just one of many, and what others don't know is the indigenous people of the Solomon Islands have been dealing with these giants for thousands of years. And what these people have gone through while living beside these massive humanoids will absolutely blow your mind. So stay tuned, part 2. Declassified documents explain a Special Forces unit's strange encounter in North Korea. On December 17, 1974, a Special Forces unit was sent on a search and destroy mission in a demilitarized zone in the northernmost part of North Korea. They set out on their mission early that morning. Their objective? To use a winding river as a guide to locate the enemy and neutralize them upon contact. They continued for hours with virtually no encounters. They were miles into the forest and following the winding river when suddenly something changed. The squad leader raises his hand, halting the rest of the crew, as he had noticed that the sounds of the forest had abruptly stopped and it was now completely silent. Up to this point in the mission, it had seemed as though the zone was completely empty. There were no enemies in sight, but the unnatural silence didn't sit right with the lieutenant. As a result, he decides to send 2 groups of scouts ahead to intercept an enemy or look for potential ambush. After letting the scouts get out in front, the rest continued their long trek. Hours later, evening began to approach, and that's when things took a turn for the worst. Night fell as they made their final sweep of the riverbed. Then, they moved to the rendezvous point established with the scout before he left, but he was nowhere to be found. So they quickly radio the rest of the scouts and realized that they had all gone MIA. They assumed that they had been intercepted by the enemy. So in fear that the enemy was close and the same thing would happen to them, the leader decided that they should turn around and head back to base for reinforcements. So they make the quick decision, waste no time, and begin heading south. They were making their way back hastily in fear that the enemy was hot on their trail, when once again, the leader held his hand up to halt. He orders the crew to keep their eyes up, and when they do, they can't believe what they see. As they gazed up into the trees, they noticed a group of dark entities had suddenly surrounded them without their knowledge. At first, thinking they were rebel soldiers, the group leader ordered them to fire on the creatures, so they raised their guns up and let them have it. The entities quickly disappear, and it doesn't seem like anybody made any contact at all. Baffled, the squad leader yells out, "Move, move, move!" as they had to get back to base as soon as possible. The entities continued to follow closely behind, and occasionally the group would stop and fire on one, but they never seemed to be able to hit them. This continued till they were halfway back to their destination, when finally they encountered their stalkers, part 2. Alright y'all, we gotta talk about this new Mandela effect. For those of you that don't know, the Mandela effect is when the masses believe something to be a certain way, when in fact, it is not. Basically, it's an instance of a false memory. One of the more popular examples of this is the Berenstain Bears. This is how it's spelt today, with the A-I-N at the end. But this is how people have always thought it was spelt, including myself. It's not Berenstain, it's Berenstain. But that's not why I made this video. I made this video today for a Mandela effect that I know is not the way it used to be. It's a beverage that's been around since the late 1800s and that we all grew up drinking. Yup, you guessed it, Coca-Cola. And now the hyphen is at the top instead of the middle between the words Coca and Cola. This was my dad's favorite thing to drink, and I know that it used to be in the middle, not at the top. The crazy thing is, I'm even finding vintage photographs with the hyphen at the top. Man, blowing my mind. I even went in an old stash of Coca-Cola cans from a year or so ago, and still, the hyphen is at the top. I don't get it. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Was the hyphen in the middle or at the top of the Coca-Cola sign? Another recent one they're claiming that has me baffled is the Monopoly guy. They're claiming today that he never had a monocle on his right eye. Those of you that grew up playing Monopoly, you gotta know, he always had a monocle. And when reading about this, I couldn't help but remember an old movie that referenced this. Check it out.
Who is this ghastly man? Ace Ventura, pet detective. And you must be the Monopoly guy. Hey, thanks for the free parking.
Let me know what y'all think in the comments. The Coca-Cola hyphen in the middle or at the top? Or did the Monopoly guy have a monocle? Because these have me absolutely dumbfounded. Is it possible we're in a different reality? Recently, a woman shared this picture along with many others on her social media platform. And when asked what they were, she told them they were something she felt the world should know about. And that she harnessed the skills needed to spot them around her in everyday life while working for the CIA on Project Gateway. There was recently an interesting declassified CIA document. It surrounds the training of psychic soldiers and enhancements to the brain known as the Gateway Process Experience Experiments. The document showed a written letter between one of the heads of the experiment and a U.S. government high-ranking official. They spoke of the analysis of the experiment. Most likely, the U.S. government didn't know exactly what was going on with them, so they would send an agent in undercover to go through the process to make sure it was worth the funding or not. The overall analysis stated that our brains vibe at a certain frequency, but we're only using one side of it. If we could get the other to vibe at the same frequency, we can have a hyper focus. That's why this lady can spot the fairies and others can't, but we can gain the knowledge, because there's more around us than we ever knew.